Hi, good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, hi. Can you hear it? Uh, it's working. Hi, yeah. Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to this session. It's Saturday at COP, already too many days ahead. So those of you who are here at 9 a.m. are really the ones passionate about the topic. My name is Daniel Costa. I work with the high-level champions, the climate champions team, supporting the engagement of the non-state actors, so the private sector, the business sector, in the COP agendas. We have a bunch of sectoral work, including work on food systems and land use. So I invite you all to get to know the call to action on food systems, which brings a lot of these actors together to take action and make the necessary changes that we need in the 2030 agenda. Today, at this event, Transforming Agriculture Through Innovation, Technology, and Finance to Achieve Food Security, we're going to discuss how these topics are brought together. We have specialists from the different sectors, from finance, from science and technology, and from the agricultural sector, bringing practical solutions and talking about funding mechanisms in these topics on how we can accelerate the change that we need to feed potentially 10 billion people in 2050. At the same time, that we will need to produce more food in less land, because we will also need to regenerate a lot of the land that we need to store carbon, restore biodiversity, and keep up with our climate and nature agendas in line. I will not talk too much about this topic because I will let the specialists talk here. And I would like to introduce our first panel. We're going to have two panels today with specialists from different kinds. And in the first panel, I would like to invite to the stage to join me Dr. Jaewoo Koo, Senior Research Fellow at CGIAR, formerly called the Consultative Group on International Agriculture Research. The second guest, Natalia Machado, Global Business Development and Public Affairs at Solinftech. And finally, We have Pedro from HelloFresh. Sorry, Pedro, what's your last name? Pedro Martes. Martin? Welcome, Pedro from HelloFresh. Pedro just joined last minute, so sorry for not briefly introducing properly. We're going to start this discussion with 8 minutes interventions by each of you, and then you feel free to comment on each other's topics, and then if we keep it on time, we can have a final 2-minute intervention before we proceed to the next panel. I would like to start with you, Dr. Jawu. Potentially, you can talk a little bit about your work at CGIAR, provide a little bit of a global perspective on how innovation and technology can face the challenges in agriculture, introduce potentially the climate change and adaptation and mitigation impact action platform that CGIAR leads, and share a little bit about the examples that this platform brings to the markets in these topics. Dr. Jayu?
Great, yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, again, my name is Zhao Ku. I'm a senior research fellow at one of the CGIAR research centers. I'm based in Washington, D.C. at a center called IPRI, focusing on food policy issues. But I've been also working on many different projects across CGIAR system, especially focusing on digital technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the research topics that we are undertaking in the CGIAR. Yeah, again, the CGIAR is the world's largest publicly funded agricultural research organization. We have about 9,000 scientists across more than 100 countries around the world, and mostly in the global south. But we do facilitate and promote South-South collaboration. So, yeah, in this case, a lot of technology, digital technology, not necessarily coming from the global south, but we're also trying to make sure the lessons learned and application of such technologies are shared across the global south countries. So as a research organization, we don't necessarily develop all these technologies ourselves, but again, there has been a lot of application we are bringing to the table. The first kind of example is farm level decision making. So a lot of the decision needs to be made by farmers on a daily basis, and yeah, in remote areas, for example, in African countries, so they have to sometimes make such decisions quite blindly or just based on the previous year's experiences, not necessarily having able to access latest information and data. So we are trying to bridge the gap by providing services and providing access to such technology information systems to extension services in those countries. Sometimes this can be done very analog way by visiting them and train them to really provide access to those technologies information, but sometimes we increasingly trying to introduce digital technologies such as chatbot and AI tools so that they can do all these kinds of analysis online by themselves. But the main challenge there is really the connectivity and infrastructure in rural areas. Usually cell phone towers, although it's just very ubiquitous in our environment in developed countries, but so it's not quite common in developing countries to have the reliable cell phone connection and mobile internet in rural areas. It costs about twice as much to set up a cell tower in rural area, but the revenue that mobile companies generate is only about 10%. So it's really difficult to persuade mobile companies and mobile networks to expand the network coverage in such areas. So this is where really public funding can come in and provide support, and we are encouraged by the recent findings and evidence showing when you have digitalization in agriculture in rural area, actually the greenhouse gas emission goes down because farmers can access this information to improve efficiency. So through that, we have been also seeing the evidence of improved productivity and efficiency in agriculture in risk management through crop insurance programs. So we are also experimenting cell phone picture-based crop insurance programs so that farmers don't have to rely on actually people going to the field and verifying all the claims on premium, etc. So we are also supporting policymakers when they need to make investment decisions to prioritize many different competing priorities to provide support on what really the most effective entry point for different types of intervention in agriculture. So, yeah, we whenever there is another thing I have to say is that our mission statement, CGIAR mission statement, is transforming food, land, and water system in a climate crisis. So everything we do has climate change context. So we have been providing this evidence and research, and also sometimes develop new research to provide and generate such evidence. And that's the main business of the climate impact platform so far. And we want to continue providing that as a platform, kind of entry point for our partners to tap into the expertise, research expertise in CGIAR. So let me stop here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Jau. A very important work. I liked what you said about the need for public government and the divisions where the private capital can come in, because it's not profitable in some cases to have the connection done in really remote areas. So I guess an integration between the research side, the public side, the private side providing innovations is really necessary in this space, mainly when we talk about also smallholder farmers that generally lack the resources to access funding, technologies, and everything. So the work of CGIAR here is really paramount, and I think it's really important that you focus on this integration of technology, research, and the different actors. I'll jump to our next speaker, Natalia. Natalia, talking about technology, I guess this is everything that Solimtech is about, AI and robotics to change the way agriculture is done today. I believe that you're going to present a little bit about Solimtech's projects in this sense, potentially Solix, I guess, a robot that is changing the way that farms are being, let's say, taken care of and managed in the whole world. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how Solimtech's changing the game, mixing technology, agriculture, AI, and robotics?
Gladly, Daniel. Good morning, everybody. Well, transforming agriculture through innovation is Solimtech's North Star. So it's pretty nice for us to have this space and talk about the company. So I'm part of the Global Strategy Department of Solimtech, a Brazilian agri-tech company. So we put together technology and agriculture. And one of the things that the doctor was talking about is that we have to start relying more on technology other than just human aspects. So when we have a technology that lives in the field 24/7, that makes you have a giant amount of data for you to work every day and have more precise decisions. So a little bit on Solimtech here. So we were founded in 2007 in Brazil, working with softwares that are piled up with solutions for the farmers. So we collect data from the machines in the agricultural sector to provide solutions to the farmers on traceability, logistics, AI, and now also closing the cycle with robotics as well. You mentioned Solix, Daniel. I have a surprise for everyone here. I brought a video of Solix, which makes it pretty much easier to explain. Could you get it for me, DJ? Yes. All right. So can you mute it? That will make it easier, but I'll keep talking. So this is Solix, a solar AI-powered platform which can do three main things. One is what we call scouting, so there are cameras underneath the robot, so we can collect data on a plant-by-plant level, start acting with the sprayer asset, which you can see in the video. It does the targeted application of herbicides, so we can get to a reduction of up to 90% in the use of herbicides in the field. And when the night comes, Solix also hunts. So Solix the hunter, you've got UV lights, so we can attract and eliminate the insects, the adult insects, with no insecticide at all. So I'm talking about eliminating fossil fuel, reducing up to 90% the use of the input of the herbicide in the field, eliminating insecticide. There it comes, all with AI, bringing more productivity to the field for the farmer. So this all connects with the sampling that we were talking about. With Solix, we can get sampling in the field of 2 million plants. And today with human contact, we can get a sampling of 2,000 plants, and then we work with all this management for the rest of the field. But this person is going to be integrated with this technology. this same agronomist will have the tech in his hands to have a better work. So that's why I say it's our North Star, because considering some countries that they have huge losses in productivity, considering this mismanagement of practices, when we think about some African countries, for example, they lose about 30% in productivity because of insects or lack of technology that in the field for the management. When you think of this kind of technology, I mean, the future is bright. So I'm very glad to be here, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Really good to see how technology can really be implemented in this scale and saving water, reducing herbicide use, potentially also enhancing productivity and yield increase as well, which is super important to produce more food in the same amount of land. But after the food leaves the farm, it gotta get to our plate. And we have Pedro here with HelloFresh, a service that is really interesting that I will let you explain a little bit more to the audience for those who don't know. So Pedro, we talked a lot about the food production, but until food goes out of the farm, gets to our plate, gets cooked and gets done, that's a long way. Can you potentially talk about HelloFresh work in this space, in delivering food from the farm to the fork?
For sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Good morning, everyone. And indeed, I want to bring a perspective on the buyer side, so the ones that are buying the products from the farmers who are producing food, and then connecting to the end consumers that are eating the food in a end of the value chain. I work with sustainability and innovation at HelloFresh Europe and Oceania. And for those who don't know, HelloFresh is a meal kit provider, so it's kind of like an online supermarket. But instead of you buying the ingredients, you buy the recipe. So let's say you buy a risotto, you get the rice, you get the onion, you get the mushrooms, you get the cheese, and then you cook that at home. And for us, when we look at how to improve our sustainability or how to define our sustainability strategy, one thing that really is important to understand is how are those innovations being funded, right? We are in what we are calling the finance COP. That is all about how to make that financial transition possible. I'm gonna just take it off my microphone. And when we talk to our consumers, and relatively consumers that had a high purchasing power, if you ask if they want to pay a price for a more sustainable product, most of them say they don't. They're not willing to pay more, especially when you look at, depending on the economical cycle where we have higher inflations, they want more affordable food. So then who is paying that bill, right? Who is paying those investments? And this is something that, there is the government funds, there are development banks, there are ESG funds, there are charity, but we really need to understand, as we were discussing before, how can we merge that private capital with public capital and make those innovations thrive. And for instance, what we have done at HelloFresh is to create what we call a carbon insetting fund. So we were offsetting part of our emissions before, and we shift that strategy and we redirected that budget to create an internal mechanism where we can directly invest in our supply chain, in our suppliers, both at farm level but also at processing level. And how we did that is to create, well, first to define what is the overall budget from a top-level approach, but then redistributing this money throughout the departments according to the emissions of each department. In the case of HelloFresh, it's mostly scope-free ingredients because we sell food, so it makes sense that the ingredients are the most responsible for that, but also logistics. So we define it's about 70% of our emissions accounts for ingredients, about 20% in logistics and 10% other aspects. So we distributed that money through the departments, and we created a cost line in their P&L saying sustainability costs or sustainability projects. There's a cost there, and so we use that budget then to decarbonize with suppliers, and as then they are able to get results and lower their emissions, ultimately they would reduce that cost line. But of course, if you wanted to be more bullish and strategic on reducing the emissions, we can improve the budget and therefore improve also those cost lines. So it's, I wouldn't call a carbon tax because we still have some governance mechanisms to develop, but it's nevertheless a way to account and show to the departments internally, not only to see that information in the sustainability teams, also in the procurement teams, in the product teams, in the logistics teams, that they need to understand where their emissions are coming from and also understand how to develop those projects further. And then how to select those projects, it's almost like an internal VC. So we go to the suppliers, we ask them, what is your sustainability strategy? Do you already have decarbonization targets? Do you already have projects to implement? And what are the projects you would like to get funded? So of course we don't get equity from the suppliers, but we invest on projects. So it's a project-based investment. And usually we're looking to co-finance that with the suppliers. So we understand what are the costs of those suppliers. For instance, like what is the cost of this robot? How does this cost unfolds into the different years that those investments will be implemented, and what is the decarbonization, what is the regenerative agriculture or the fertility inputs, what is the benefits ultimately that those projects are bringing, and then we screen those projects, we discuss, we prioritize, and then we define in which projects to invest. And for instance, we have one on fresh produce production that it's basically, we did a partnership with Climate Farmers, a European company works on regenerative agriculture methods, for them to assess, take a pilot of the farmer, about 5 hectares of land, implement different measures, measure after 1 year, and understand what are the fertilizer input reduction, what are the soil fertility increase, and yeah, what are the main outputs of this. We have a very strong focus on animal protein decarbonization because it is the biggest part of our emissions. It's about 40% of all emissions that we have, and you can think about general recipes that we serve. 40% comes from beef, the other 20% from poultry and pork. So it's also very important to understand how to decarbonize those sectors, either at the feed level, at the animal production level, and yeah, the other parts of the supply chain as well. Yeah, and just checking my time. And what I want to bring and finish here is really how to assess the value of those things and how to then communicate across the different value chain. I was talking that there's a booth called Climate Funds that unites different funds, both from development banks, from world banks, and they do have the interest on investing on decarbonization projects, but I think the angle that they're looking here, it's less about the carbon in soil or the carbon removal in the agriculture sector, but rather about de-risking the production and making the supply chain more resilient. We are facing different climate events this year that were all around the world, in Brazil especially. And if we can show and showcase with results how we can lower the risks of crop losses and insurance in agriculture, this is one of the ways that we can have more accessible funds, not only depending, for instance, on carbon credits that do have an important role, but I think on agriculture, it's more an indirect result than rather a direct result. And if you compare, for example, with electric vehicles, that is one technology across the whole industry pretty much, but in agriculture, we really need to be focused on what are the context-specific realities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pedro. For some final remarks on this panel, I'm going to reverse the order and potentially start with you, Pedro, to talk about the future. We have COP30 now on the pipeline, and I wanted to hear from you. You said you already went to the funds and checked what is possible in terms of scaling up this finance, but what do you think would be potentially necessary for more business like HelloFresh to really focus on this supply chain and have solutions like the ones that you have, trying to find who pays the price for the increased costs that sustainability might have. Potentially they are just upfront costs, as you said. You can have a project in which you have an initial investment, and then because of the money that you're going to save from that investment, potentially you have a lower cost in your supply chain because of that investment. So really interesting that you act, I guess, sort of almost like an off-taker, but as a co-off-taker of that project as well. So I just wanted to hear from you, what are the easy wins, potentially not with the multilateral development funds, but with private finance or even, I don't know, with public support as well? What can be changed in regulation? What do you want to see in the next year at COP30?
Very good question. Well, part of the panel is about technology, and of course we discuss about the technology in the farm level, but I think I would really like to see more collaboration within the private sector. There are some pre-competitive alliances, for instance, but I personally have not seen one that really drove change in terms of combining, for instance, like HelloFresh is a buyer. We have, I don't know, Walmart as a buyer. We have Albert Heijn in Holland. We have Tesco. Like we have different buyers that ultimately they all have different decarbonization targets. They have all different goals. But I don't think it makes sense for each company to go to their suppliers individually and making and funding projects themselves. So I really believe on how to have collaborative projects or collaborative fundings, either within the private sector, either that through buyers, different buyers collaborating together, or through banks funding different buyers to do that together, but to optimize the costs. We often seen what are the bigger costs of those projects, and the MRV, the measure, verify, and reporting, is usually a big chunk of that. So how do you measure the results of those robots? How do you measure the results of those projects with smallholder farmers? It's a very costly initiative, and if one single company needs to fund it all, there's a very little number of projects one company can fund. But if that can be replicated across different either different suppliers or either different buyers, I think we can really catalyze change. So this is one angle that I think would be very good for the sector to get together and drive change faster.
Perfect, very much. Now, Natalia, on your side, I know that you might not be facing trouble accessing financing here today. You have one of your investors in the audience. He's going to talk soon about his work. But I wanted to know for the farmers, what do you see as a potential bottleneck? You know, why is not everybody using technologies like the one that Solimtech does? The results are there, the results are proven. As you said, it reduces water, it reduces the herbicide use. It's apparently the economic case is there. Maybe I'm not sure if it's problems with the initial investment or not, if there needs to be more access to finance for these farmers to pay the upfront costs and then finance this in the long term. What do you think needs to change for more farmers to either have the solutions that Solimtech is providing, but other technology-driven startups, SMEs, and big companies that are working in this space in agriculture?
It's already happening somehow. I mean, as you're not listening to me? Yeah? Sorry about that. I was listening to me, so I thought it was okay. I'm saying it's already happening because, yeah, because in Brazil, for example, we have a very good relationship with the National Development Bank. So there are some policies that help the farmer achieve that. So the farmers, they can purchase one of these technologies and have this agreement with the bank, so they have some time to pay. And for Solix, for example, there is a payback in the first season, so it makes their life easier. But I would say this kind of policies and engagements from not only the government banks, but also from private banks, this is very helpful for early adopters and for the adopters of the future, right? Because this type of technology is always proving itself. So in the beginning, which the development started around 2021 and 2022, we had the first farmers getting pilots in their farms to prove the concept, and after the concept was proven, we could actually start being commercial. So now, especially in Brazil, the farmers, they know each other, so they get this proof from the results from each other's farms. It changes according to the markets that we are positioned, but having those banks, private and public banks, providing good examples of financing or loan farm credits so they can access this type of technology. I think that's the main secret here. And that's what we have been doing, talking to not only governments of the countries that we have operations at, but also to private banks, so we can provide to our farmers or potential farmers kind of a whole package solution, but also, okay, how am I going to buy this? You know, so it's not only about providing the technology itself isolated. It's a matter of the whole package. Otherwise, the adoption becomes a little more difficult.
Yeah, I have one comment on what you mentioned about farmers having a example and showing to other farmers. This is something, a very big learning we had when we were engaged with our supply chain, that farmers hear other farmers much more than, HelloFresh or people from the city, let's put it on that way. And we have different examples of model farms, concept farms that would be able to implement those innovative technologies that usually would be funded also by the processors or by the buyers. And then that would engage much easier other farmers to be able to implement. We have, for instance, grass-fed beef suppliers in Ireland having concept farms there. We have poultry suppliers in the Netherlands also using the same approach. And I think that's a very useful one to scale, because then when the farmers see other farmers happy and implementing that, it accelerates that change.
Thank you very much. Honestly, it makes me really hopeful when you say it's already happening. Often in these discussions, we talk about the problems, the bottlenecks, the challenges, but to hear that the change is happening from somebody who is in the industry and in contact with the farmers, see that this change is already happening is actually comforting, because we know we have a lot to achieve until 2030. It's a huge undertake, but to see the technology is being implemented, and we know that when technology starts being deployed, it's a matter sometimes of exponential growth and scaling this, and we can really see the changes fast. Dr. Jau, you have the important mission of finishing this panel. We've heard from some specific perspectives here from industry players, but I guess you have more a bird's eye view of the whole forest. So we talked a little bit about the trees, and you can see a bit the whole context. You focus on research, on integrating technology to the solutions on the ground. So I wanted to hear from you, what are the perspectives, what do you want to see at COP30? It's going to be a COP hosted by Brazil, the farm gate of the world almost, one of the biggest producers of commodities and many of the food supply that we have. So I wanted to hear from you, what are your expectations for the next year? What do you think needs to happen? What do you think that is already happening that it's great to see? And how can we close this gap and really accelerate action towards 2030?
Okay, great. That's quite a tall order. I also moderated another session yesterday. It was about innovation ecosystem. I think, as you asked, bird's eye view is really the realization that this is not one sector, one specific player's problem. This is everyone's problem. So it's a global perspective. We are bringing together here is that importance of the innovation ecosystem. So starting from, I was mostly mentioning about the producers' challenges and farmers' access to information technology, but it's really driven eventually by the consumer preference and really farm to fork kind of value chain perspective that drives the change and scaling beyond the farm. So so that really requires a lot of coordination across the globe, across the sector, and that just sounds very much a daunting challenge. But there are, again, like following Natalia's comment, there are changes happening. So one thing I also realized coming to COP is that it's just such an innovation and creativity around the world, but we often don't see that unless you come together and start sharing in this kind of venue. So in COP30, and another important thing I also really was impressed is the number of young people. I think over the years, I think COP used to be really boring politician and high-level talks, started drawing the participation from youth and more active voice from young generation. I think I want to see that more and better reflected in programs agenda next year. And just a closing comment is one of the panelists yesterday in the innovation system mentioned that I think so far in this kind of talk, we have been focusing on rather shaming or providing kind of guilty kind of feeling to the consumers that, emit or consume the product that link to the most amount of carbon emission, for example. But maybe we need to have a different strategy, make it more fun, bring more kind of enjoyment of what's the benefit, sharing the benefit, sharing the really positive energy of toward the climate adaptation mitigation processes. So Yeah, I think that there are also a lot of interesting ideas that I've been noticing in other countries' pavilions yesterday and today. And yeah, we want to see that more and more features so that really we can move the needle of the global perspective across innovation system over the next few years.
Well, with that, I would like to ask for a round of applause for our first panel. Thank you very much. Please take your seats as I will invite the next panel to the stage. And now we're going to hear a little bit more about different players in the game. We're going to hear about cooperation in these sectors still, but we're also going to hear about the financial aspect. I'm going to introduce the panelists a little bit better after, but I would just like to invite you to say all three of them. First of all, Marcelo Freire, founder, partner at Ivy Capital. Second, Vincent Ernoult, Interag Next Med Program Coordinator for the West Mediterranean. And finally, still from Solimftech, Leonardo Carvalho, Chief Global Strategy Officer. Thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. So now we have a different profile here of panelists, and we have a really important player in the game who is a financial player, an investor. Marcelo, I would like you to briefly discuss the role of financial mechanisms in supporting sustainable agricultural practices, potentially not only the ones that we saw today, but other technologies and innovation needed in this space as well. Talk a little bit about Ivy Capital. What are you doing in this space? What is your focus? And how you are directing investments to innovative and sustainable business, and what is the role of private capital to play in this game?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really glad to be here. First of all, I want to say that I think the private investment is just like crucial. There's no other option for sure. And I can I can share this with you from from different perspectives, because until like some little few time ago, I was I was government, and then this experience in government just gave me so much certainty and clearness of view of the importance of the private investment, that after government we really decide to fund these investment companies, focus and allocate and deploy capital for the transition in Brazil. And because we know how to do things in Brazil, we know everybody in Brazil, who is who are the bad guys, who are the good guys, and because we know that Brazil has like a tremendous potential to contribute and to generate amazing, profitable business. Okay, so whatever I'm talking with you guys here today, I'm always thinking about making money, because it's what the business is about it. And I truly believe that making money is the best way that we are going to change the whole society and the whole transformation that we need to, because our society is based in money. So I think solutions that are profitable are more than welcome. And then I had this opportunity to be our national secretary for climate change in Brazil, and I also was the national secretary for Amazon, and it was a huge challenge, But after this, we said, okay, how can we continue contributing to the country and to the agenda? And we found that this is like a major pathway to do it. So like I'm really proud to be part of the history of Solimftech, for example. Solimftech is our first company invested. We are like a newborn company. We have like 1 year of existence, and I'm highly glad that I have this first benchmark case to tell everybody that it's our first investment case in the asset management, because they're just transforming the way we're doing agriculture. And I think you directed a question for Natalia now, And you ask her, why is not everybody using the Solinfitech technologies? Because not everybody knows that this exists. Like, it's amazing. Like there's, like the economics, it's not just a matter that the economics stand still. They are like amazing economically solutions, you know. But at the same time, it's an amazing economically solution when she's telling that we are reducing like 90% of herbicides. We are reducing 90% of the cost of inputs with herbicides. But for myself, I'm an environmental manager from graduation, you know. So I've been working with environment all my career, 24 years now. And like as an environmental guy, I'm super in love with that. So this is the beauty of the thing, you know. So we can invest in an amazing company that is bringing a lot of economic results for agriculture, improving results, improving performance on the field, you know, more production, less area, but at the same time, you're telling me as an environmentalist that we are reducing 90%, 80%, depends of herbicides. It's like amazing environmental results. So I want to thank you guys because for me it's like a pleasure to be part of this and to be our first invested company, you know. And I really believe that this is the importance of the private money and the private capital, you know. So we need the private to make everybody and to spread the word and spread this to the whole world, you know. Um, that's the reason not everybody's using this because makes no sense. Once you get to know the technology and you see the results on the ground, and just say, okay, why was not why I wasn't using this before? Because you didn't know this existed, you know. So money comes for that, and at the same time, it will bring for us, and I'm pretty sure of that. We just took a really good money in we just put a really good money in Solinfitech because we are pretty sure that this will be like exponentially multiply several times because people will start more and more and more and more to discover that. And once you learn that you can produce much more with much less, like it's a win, 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 win game. So everybody wins. I really believe this is the way to do things, and I've been devoting my life to environmental issues, and now I'm glad that I have this opportunity to understand that like private capital is an amazing way, an amazing form to help to spread these and to make it bigger, you know. And just to close my line, it's not just on myself that has this certainty, you know. I have a really high level senior bunch of partners. So I'm partner from the former Minister of Economy of Brazil, former Minister of Environment of Brazil, the former President of the National Development Bank, you know, and all these guys are sharing this view. So we are pretty sure that to do like transition and environmentally good business in Brazil, it's an amazing economically good business, you know. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. Really nice to hear how private capital can be this fast solution, right? To scale these types of business that need investment and that need to be everywhere. Why is not everybody using Solinfitech or similar technologies? We really need this technology fast everywhere. So we really hope that the private capital will be in this game from now on with skin in the game, investing in what's profitable, but also what is driving the solutions. As you said, the environmental results, as somebody who knows what is the importance of reducing herbicide use, are also really great. So it's combining the economic returns and the environmental benefits as well. I want to shift to Vincent. Vincent, you have a lot of experience in projects mixing sustainability, regional innovation, and development. So I would like you to discuss a little bit about the finance innovation to advance these technologies towards agriculture, food security, and sustainability. And I believe you have a special announcement to make, so I will leave the floor to you.
That's right. Thank you so much. Well, there is little doubt that the way we produce and the way we consume food is not sustainable, and even it's not secure, especially in the Mediterranean or in Europe, as we have seen recently, where we had such a high dependency on crops and other things, and with the late geopolitical events, we really suffered that situation. In some countries, they suffered it very, very much. And this is true also for the Mediterranean, which is the area that we cover in our program. So our program is called Interreg NextMed, and it is the widest territorial cooperation in the Mediterranean. It is funded by the European Commission. We are a generalist program, so listening to you, experts in the field of food, I'm really enthusiastic, because out of the many topics that we can address in our program, food is really one of the very real ones. When we do something on food, we know that it's going to impact real people and businesses, and also many SMEs, which is also one of our major targets. So the special announcement that we have to make is that our program is launching a new call for proposals for projects. We are going to launch it probably in December, and what we're looking for is to fund cooperation projects at Mediterranean level, ranging from 1 to 3 million euros, and covering a wide range of topics that go from innovation to the strengthening of SMEs, to circular economy, to training, etc. So it's quite generalist. I'm not sure if there is any Mediterranean in the audience. Maybe. Looking at the faces, there might be some. For the rest of the world, don't worry, because we also have the option to be an associate in our project. So if you are, of course, from Brazil, you can be an associate. You will not receive direct money from the European Commission, but I think many times it's not what you're looking for. But if you're looking for to expand your networks and to build new partnerships, I think that a framework like our program, where we have a natural capacity to build partnerships at Mediterranean level very easily and very smoothly, for you to be an associate, it would be a very easy way to reach the Mediterranean markets. What you can do concretely regarding food, it's a lot. When thinking of the previous panel, one of the things that we can finance is the uptake of research and innovation, of research. So we take what's already been researched and we try to test it in our program at small scale, of course, because up to 3 million, we're not going to pilot it at very large scale, but it is clearly one of the things that we do. Of course, the use of technologies. We had, so far we have funded many projects dealing with technologies and many others with food. It is true that we didn't have the mix between advanced technologies for the benefit of food. So this is really something that we should see in this upcoming call for proposals. I would be very happy to see this. And also the demand side. The demand side is something we care a lot about, and also the small businesses. So how can small businesses go greener and address also the demand? And by the way, I think that maybe in the Mediterranean and in Europe, there are some people that are willing to pay an extra money for bioproducts, but it might depend also on the area, I'm sure of this. And the private sector in this program is more than welcoming. So we are not the typical European program that want to work only with public institutions. All the opposite. We are quite aware, also us, that there is no way we can address Mediterranean challenges without the private sector. That would be, of course, crazy. Even though there are some people that think that way, but we don't know why. This is not our case, of course. We mainly deal with SMEs because they are the ones that need the money more. But we are also very happy to have big companies or investors joining. And most of the time when they do it, it's of course, it's not for the grant, but it's for strategic reasons. I can tell you an example, for example, of Danone, the big food group from France. They were interested in a project in Morocco, not with us, but with a similar program. Why? Because they know that we have such an amazing drought in the Mediterranean. It's one of the driest regions in the world. They perfectly know that if Morocco, where they have plants and well, they have several plants, is going out of water, by the end of the day, at long term, it will clearly affect their business. So it's also their interest, it's the interest of Morocco, it's the interest of the citizens to all work in water. And water is, of course, one of the things that we can address in our program. So plenty of opportunities. Of course, if you are Mediterranean, it's very clear. You are welcome and you will receive funds. If you're not Mediterranean, I think that to build strategic alliances in the Mediterranean, we are really one of the best places to start. Thank you so much for your attention and for welcoming us in the panel, because I was courageous enough to come to you and ask for your permission. And I know I'm a bit out of scope with the other panelists, which are quite experts. So thank you so much for this.
I wouldn't say at all you're out of scope. I think you're perfectly in the scope. As we heard from the other panelists, we need this sort of work, getting the public and private together. Mainly, I really liked that you mentioned the SMEs as well. Really tough tackle sometimes a tough challenge to tackle, because to integrate the needs of where to deploy the public capital, where to deploy the private capital, and how to integrate it to SMEs that generally have harder access to capital, and connecting them with the larger enterprises, I think there's a real challenge there. So I think that the projects like yours, I know it's really specific to the Mediterranean region, but can provide lessons to the whole world. The Mediterranean region is a very integrated one. There's a lot of cross-cutting opportunities for learning between Europe and Brazil. We do have a good relationship in terms of the agricultural cooperation. I think there are some clashes sometimes, but I guess it's normal. It's a competitive market. But I think we do need these sorts of projects that look on how to better integrate the public money and the private money. So I think it's perfectly in line with the panel. Now, moving back to Soliftech with you, Leonardo, but potentially from a different perspective. Natalia here already introduced us how the robot works, what is the benefits for the farmer. I think it's really clear cut. Marcelo also reinforced these points. Potentially, can you talk about the strategy of Soliftech for the next years, like approaching new markets, how potentially this can be done for different crops? What are the crops that you're more, specialized in? What do you think are the next steps for companies like yours to really scale and be present in every farm out there, providing solutions, increasing yields, reducing herbicide? What is your strategy for the next years?
Thank you. I believe that Soliftech have a big challenge in face, because we need to provide more food for farmer, and we need to make them more profitable. Not just because we need to produce food, but we need to as well be more sustainable at the same time. So when you see some problem as Europe is facing, when you have some problem with glyphosate, it is almost impossible you think that you can solve this kind of the problem without you think some innovation. Not specifically technology, for sure. As a technology company, you like to think that you can solve all the problems with technology, but we believe that have many kind of the innovations that you can start to support in this kind of the problem that you are facing. So it's almost impossible to think that we can make more with less without using innovation, without use technology. What Natalia mentioned about the robotic is one of the concepts that you are thinking. That robotic could be a drive to make this world more sustainable and make the farm more profitable. Marcelo mentioned this because in the last years we believe that to be sustainable, there is not be profitable. I believe that this is changing, and you are proving that this is changing. Use kind of technology, kind of the innovation, make the world better, using less inputs, and make the farming profitable. When you think in the chain of the produced foods, we see that the farm has a big elo, but that never receives some support as government support or private support. So what you are thinking is we need to put more force where the guys never see. And for us, it is the farmer. this kind of technology, it is affordable for farmer. We need to make them affordable and that they need to have access in the short time. But you know that as a emerging technology, we need to be cheap for them. For this, we have two different way to think. It is one, it is for have some incentives. When you see public banks or when you see developing banks or you see government incentives or private sectors. So that is one way. The another way it is make the technology cheaper. For that, we need to get a maturity of the technology. When you talk about the Tesla, we know that the first car that Musk built, it is more than $1 million of the dollars. Now we can buy 30,000 for USD. Why this change? Why make this transformation? Because the guys receive some investments to develop the technology. These make the finance make the driving of the adoption of kind of the innovation, the technology. And when you see the future of the Solid Tech, the future of this kind of technology, for biological, for example, I believe that we need to make not just easy to have access, to global access, even that different continents as Africa. Natalia mentioned about the loss of the productive in Africa when you talk about the lack of the supports. But the support for the companies as well to develop this kind of technology that can eliminate or avoid the risk of the climate. And Solid Tech is putting our efforts on this vertical, on make the farmer more profitable, produce more food, and at the same time we are being more sustainable. I believe that the result of this, it is the society can gain more vision for the future and you can start to see the problems in different perspectives.
Amazing, thank you very much. I'll do the same as in the last panel, so I'll reverse the order here of some final interventions. You feel free to interact with each other and also comment on each other's lines. But I wanted to ask you about something that Pedro actually mentioned. He mentioned that sometimes he sees a challenge in cooperation among the private sector. We know it's a competitive market. Everybody's competing for market shares. But I think the market is big enough for some cooperation. And we have other technology providers there in the market as well. So I wanted to know a little bit more from you, because as we need to scale finance, and Pedro also proposed a solution, maybe we can pool the finance together from different buyers and then decrease the cost for the farmer. Do you think this is the same for technology? As you said, as technology gets developed, the costs get reduced. We have the example in other sectors like solar energy. Nowadays, it's more than 90% cheaper than it was a few years ago, and the change is generally exponential. So do you think that cooperation might be one of the ways to tackle this challenge and really scale up in a really fast way the decreases in costs that you said are necessary to make this technology cheap enough and affordable that everybody can have this on their farm?
For sure, I believe that's totally possible. And you're talking specifically about the artificial intelligence, that's everybody's want to talk about this. I believe this become more commodities. Everybody knows how to use artificial intelligence, but how you can apply this in the field, it is the trick. And you are seeing a different kind of the robots running the field. But one company more specifically in specialty crops, another one more in row crops. But what you have in background of this is artificial intelligence. I believe that the cooperation between companies, when you can share the knowledge how to use the artificial intelligence in the field, could be a good result to make the chain more profitable and make the chain more valuable when you see the challenge that we're facing.
Thank you very much. Now, moving back to you, Vincent, you mentioned, like sometimes that it's not that European Commission money, that it has a lot of red tape and everything. Do you need to bring the private capital together? So I wanted to hear from you, how do you see this going forward? Do you think the relationship between the private and public money is improving to deploy these sorts of technologies? You mentioned you work a lot with SMEs. Do you think we can have some learnings from the Mediterranean in terms of how to integrating SMEs into these solutions to really scale technological innovation, regional development, and sustainability at the same time? Where do you see are the challenges and where are the easy wins so we can start implementing them on the next year?
Thanks. Yeah, red tape is amazing. In fact, it's one of the major obstacles that European and Mediterranean companies have, except, of course, in particular the SMEs. I would say, unfortunately, on this, because Mediterranean is leading the way in many senses, but on mixing public and private sectors, we are unfortunately not the best example so far. Though in programs like our, we are making many efforts to do this. I think that, and also to join the previous question, what we have here is a challenge of not only a cooperation and business challenge. We have a challenge of creativity and psychology, because we have to make understand rivals that they may find a common ground for cooperation, and for example, to join the private sector often is reluctant also to work with the public sector because they know that the public sector is not effective, is slow, has a lot of red tape. So that is worse for rivals, and that is worse for private and public, and also the public. The public sector, they don't want to work with the private sector because they think the private sector it's only about money. They have no real interest. So really, what we have there, and we have this a lot in our program, is a challenge of convincing people of psychology to find the common grounds. It's really that important, and many times we were able to do this with the common ground of sustainability. I think sustainability normally it's one of the points that rivals and public and private sector can work on because they know that it's not directly impacting negatively their business. It should be the opposite. So that's really kind of different challenge that we have. It's not only a pure technical business challenge, but there is a lot of narrative that we have to build. We have to work a lot on the narrative, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Really pleased to hear. If it's a narrative problem, potentially we have less of a hard time that we're thinking about. But touching a little bit on your points and then bringing back to you, Marcelo, I might put you in a tough position, but you've seen both sides of the coin, right? You've been in government, now you're in private. And often people say that there is a lack of integration, like Vincent just said here, on which capital must go. So the type of patient capital that sometimes bigger investors and the public sector can have, and with less worries about the profits and the financial return, whereas the private sector is always seeking a financial return. We also often hear criticism from the general audience, civil society, that the private sector is only seeking return, and I think the movement is to ask for also a fiduciary duty of caring about the planet, caring about the impact of these financial investments. So what do you think the private sector can change to make this interaction a little bit more smooth with the public sector? How can we integrate these different types of capital? And how can private capital be more worried about sustainability? Maybe you can talk a little bit more about Ivy Capital approach to these topics. How can we make sustainability with maybe not more important than profit, because potentially that's impossible. Profit will be the engine there for the private capital, but as important as profit.
Thank you. Let me start rephrasing myself. And I want to share a personal belief and a personal value for me. So in the beginning, when I thought like that money is the most important thing, that's not the truth in the end of the day, you know. And I'm saying this from my personal perspective and my beliefs. So what I came to understand is that for me, always the common being and the common welfare and the environmental is always my priority. Since I'm an environmentalist guy, you know. But what I learned is that like money and profit, it's an amazing and powerful way to get there. you know. So we have a pathway in life, you know. So when Marcelo was like this young guy, long hair, like in college, and then I look now, I had other views, and I think everybody has uh, during life starts to like change views and understand things better, you know. So I came to understand that like capital and profit, it's a super powerful tool for us to get to the real important thing, that is make things better, makes everybody better, the life from everybody better, and the environment better. So from my personal perspective, that I'm a guy super interested in environmental issues, you know. So when I looked at it, we can put a check in a technology that is reducing like this absurd of inputs. As an environmentalist, I'm interested in that, you know, but the way to do it is through capital, okay? And we believe so much in this that for us, for me and my partners, we have several times we need to stop, stand still and say, okay, hold on, because we are here to make money, you know, but we have this mindset so strong, set it up in us, that it's a mindset from public servants, you know. So, oh, we're serving here the public, we're serving the country, we're serving the economy, we're serving the environment. But now that we have this private sector hat, we I personally still face this challenge. You know, sometimes I need to stand and still say, hey, hold on, okay. But it's hard to segregate things, you know, because pretty much everything that we're doing for profit, but at the same time we are doing thinking on the results and the positive impact. It's like a nature thing for me and for my partners, you know. We have to stop ourselves and say, hey, hold on, you're here to make money. Several times we have in our investment committees, we need to stop the investment committee and say, okay, but we are here to make money, okay? Again, because we all believe that making money is the better way to get there on the positive impact results. And talking about cooperation, when it comes to invest in green economy and transition, like there's a huge lack of resources and capital for the size of the challenge, you know. So the more investment, the more cooperation, and the more people co-investing together, the better, because there's investment spots and available spots for investment for everybody. So much more opportunities than money, really, to be put in it. So that's one of the reasons we have Ivy Capital, because we just look at to this amazing available spot in Brazil, and then we said, man, like there's nobody sitting on this chair, you know, like there's nobody taking this spot. There's an available spot in Brazil, and you see like this ocean of opportunities. There are opportunities that can promote really large-scale positive impacts. Remember that Brazil is a highly agriculture country with this major importance in producing food. And when you look at this, like every little change that you make, or every little improve in some technology or some process or some way to produce food, at the same time is generating amazing impact and an amazing numbers, because everything is so in a large scale in Brazil when it comes to land and agriculture. So every little business or every little improve, like you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars, really. So we just look at this and said, okay, but nobody's like sitting on this available spot and looking this as like a pragmatical way to understand that this is a really good business. But in the end of the day, well, we are delivering like good results for everybody, for society, and for food production. So just to end my line, other thing that I want to share with you guys, that cooperation is so needed not just in capital, but in every I think every area in every area of the knowledge, in every area of society, cooperation for us. We are all here together building a new world, a green world, a greener world. Like we are in the middle of this huge transition. So I believe so much on that I have this other company called Vivens Business School that is like a hub for education and green economy in Brazil. It's all about cooperation, really. It's all about cooperation. It's just we don't have the answers, We pretend and we want to call us an education company because we are an education company, but in the end of the day, it's just a hub, because everybody's changing, is cooperating together. I don't know everything from you, from your business. You don't know everything from my business, but we can cooperate. Because if we don't cooperate, we'll never get there to the end of this transition. So lots of money for transition, lots of cooperation in knowledge sharing, technology sharing, everything. I think there's the size of the challenge is so big that there is enough space for everybody. And governments, just to answer your question, I think it's more than time that government, the private sector and public sector understand that there's no segregation in the end of the day. Because if you really think in the end of the day, like the private sector are generate revenue that maintain the governments much of times, So there's no desegregation really. So sometimes when you are inside government, it appears like the private sector is some evil presence, And sometimes when you are in the private sector, you look and say, yeah, government, they're just bureaucrats, So we can bring together these two amazing force, amazing power, and I think the government has much more opportunities to sustain for more time, like the initial phase for a company or the initial phase of technologies or development, because they don't need to show the financial results. They're not so in a such like direct way or sooner way. That's it. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. With that good final word, I would like to call for a round of applause for the panel. Oh yes, we have an intervention from the audience.
It's kind of a question more as a comment. I think to your point, talking about what is the most important thing, I would frame as the capital or the money is the most efficient thing to achieve the most important things, which is the positive impact and the climate transition we need. I also mentioned that consumers are not willing to pay for more sustainable products. I would like also to refrain myself, and I think some consumers do. You mentioned like Mediterranean consumers do. And I think that's actually the sweet spot we should thrive, right? Like where is sustainability able to be profitable? And if it's not, then it needs research, as you were mentioning, right? So like you mentioned solar panel, like it was very costly, or Tesla cars, or lab-grown meat, still very expensive. But then as we advance with the technologies to fund and find the right consumers or clients or banks willing to invest on those things to make it profitable, then it's actually where we can scale those transitions and make that thrive.
I just want to add one comment. It came to me while I was talking. I think it's really, really important that we pursue improvements, and always understand that any gain is a gain, because sometimes when we are looking to investment or we are looking to develop new actions and a strategy, we're just looking for this like amazing sweet spot in the end of the tunnel, or in the end of the process. But like every step, it's important. So sometimes you have a like investment or opportunity, or you have a new technology that is not like a 100% clean and renewable technology, but it's like 50%. Amazing. Like every step is important. So I think we need to start to have this like really like fresh inside ourselves, really strong inside ourselves. Every step is important. So, okay, we don't invest in fossil fuels, for example, okay? But what if we have like a technology that can reduce like 50%, 60% of like gas consumption in a machine, for example? Amazing. Okay, we're talking about transition here. Like sometimes we are like pursuing like the perfect thing, and we are not doing like the good that is possible here today.
Before, yeah.
Sorry, just another quick comment or question. So, especially for small and medium-scale farmers, this adoption of amazing technologies is particularly still very hard because the relatively low food price, I mean, the margin of benefit even expected from the production, the beginning of the production cycle is always either making even or sometimes even negative. So unless there is a farm subsidy and other types of support, public support, farmers know already that they don't have enough profit to make out of this season. So the investment in this kind of technology in innovation is really, really risky. So yeah, we've been just, from the researcher side, we've been also just struggling to understand what is the sweet spot of the pricing. The input price keeps going up and it doesn't seem to be going down anytime soon. Logistics is getting more expensive, while food price going lower and lower. So how do we reconcile this financing, the economics, economy of input, and the production and the benefit for farmers? Because again, in the end of the day, farmers are also private sector. They are motivated by profit, and it's really difficult to have this kind of conversation with farmers when there is no clear trajectory for making profit for investment in technology.
May I? Well, this is the problem of the European agriculture. Mainly European agriculture has that problem. It's a fully subsidized agriculture, and we know that our farmers survive. So that is a very big problem, especially in a globalized agriculture commerce where other countries offer much cheaper salary conditions. So this is really something that we should take into account, but you're totally right. And it's true that we say, why they don't use this technology for SMEs, for small farmers? The investment in technology is almost impossible. And maybe this is one of the places where a program like ours, if we are able to grow, or private investors should really make a big difference and a big deal, I think.
Oh, I think Leo can tell better, but I'm recalling here like several times in the beginning of Solifitech, like the company had to install by herself like the infrastructure for technology, for information and for communication, But in the end of the day, the economy is so large that it compensates anyway. And again, small farmers has problems everywhere, and I think it's not like a unique, it's not a regular problem. Every region, every country has its own particularities. That's the reason we are really focused in Brazil, because we know pretty well what's going on and different approach. I think every piece of the world different challenge.
Just before passing, they can pool resources together. So joining SMEs, it's one of the things that we can do.
In my perspective, I believe that to achieve the small farmers, we need different approach. The first one is access. To give access for the farmer, because this kind of technology normally, when you have this dramatically reducing, it is expensive. And for that, we need a finance perspective. Even that government, subsidy, or privates, we need to give this access. This is the first point. The second point, I believe that's a challenge that as technology company has, to make this technology access for you, not just in terms of the finance, but in terms of the use, to make some things friendly that you guys can have this kind of the access. And I believe that the third part, it is educational. So I believe that's when you can have these three kinds of the points to achieve the small farmers, probably you can accelerate the adoption of the farmers. But for sure, every technology, every innovation starts with the largest one, large farmers, large users, the early adopters, and you start to develop this to achieve the small ones. I believe that's common process, but if you see in the entire world, I believe that the average size of the farmer is 50 acres, that is small ones. But if you see the entire production of the world, probably is in 20% of the farmers can produce the majority part of the food. So I believe that it is a challenge that everybody is looking for, but for sure we have a curve maturity to achieve the small one.
We still have some times for questions for the audience. If anybody wants to ask something to the panel, make a comment. We still have 8 minutes here to finish the panel. Any comments? Oh, we have one.
Okay, thank you. You touched on but didn't quite mention the pillars of sustainability that particularly the Malaysians talk about a lot, of people, planet, profit. And I think there's a lot of truth in those. But the other aspect, particularly Marco didn't mention, is where the public-private partnerships work so well. And of course, CGIAR is particularly strong on that and shows that there's place both and Embrapa in Brazil, of course, that I'm sure your companies also work with. And I'd like to hear how you see with your companies that the partnership with Embrapa working. But I think agriculture is uniquely placed because it's a lot of very small individuals there, and both the public and the private are extremely good at working those. And of course, one area where the public sector particularly works is in the tertiary education, that you look at the transformation of agriculture in India in the last 25 years, really, and that's so much based on the tens of millions of master's level students coming out of the universities and going back into agriculture, trialing things, seeing the latest technology and so forth. And I think these are all real areas where public-private partnerships are extremely important and valuable, and they really do make livelihoods great. One other comment to another audience member. I was very interested that you said that farmers are driven by profit. I'm not sure that's the case. I think there's two things that also drive them. They want to have a beautiful area to live in and a beautiful farm and all the ecological things which perhaps the masses in urbanized populations have rather lost, and I hope that we can improve. And also they're very motivated by passing on to the next generation. So the youth is at the heart of many individual farmers, even more so than many corporations. So it's profit in order to have enough to have a comfortable lifestyle, but it's ecology, environment, and passing to the next generation are real motivators for farmers. Thank you. Sorry, I'm Pat Harrison from University of Leicester in UK, but we have a lot of collaborations with CG institutes.
I would like to take advantage of this to say that the triple P, of course, it is very important for us. And when before I mentioned the narrative, I think it's not only narrative, but it's also real that we know that the younger generations will no longer buy products that are not green. So this is a way to reconcile business and sustainability. In our case, I think we are going to work a lot on this triple P.
No, I really appreciate it. The two additional factors might play for motivating farmers. I totally agree. I don't know additional comment, but really appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, if not, another round of applause for the panel. Just to close off this session, I guess we touched upon many of the challenges that we have here in food and agriculture. We've heard from people that are working in different parts of the value chain in the industry, with that outside of the industry, from research, from people who have been in the government, are now in the private sector, for people that work directly with the government and people and SMEs, from companies that are trying to scale, improve, and deliver sustainability impact. But I guess in the end of the day, we have to remember, like the pavilion here well illustrates, that we have to invest in rural people. Rural people are the ones producing the foods that are on our tables. And I think when we think about the themes that we brought up here, technology, finance, innovation, they all need to serve as a means to provide better results in terms of the world that we want to live in, to achieve the sustainability metrics that we want to see in the long term, lower GHG emissions, better resilient and adapted systems to the climate that is already changing, and with people that can thrive in these conditions. So I think that when we think about the next steps, COP30, what is ahead of us, I really want to emphasize one of the points that was brought up by many of the speakers here, which is incremental change. With little steps, we all work in different sectors. We are sometimes involved in research with practical solutions, with policy making or influencing policy making. We have to make incremental change happen in all of these spaces so we can have all these sectors integrated together and really transform agriculture. Thank you for inviting me to moderate this session. Thank you for the Pavilion for hosting us, and I wish you a really good rest of COP29.